Welcome to CGTN and welcome to Beijing, Gladden.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
In your talk, you mentioned that Hungary is kind of a marquee state for European nationalism in some way. Can you give a Hungarian perspective on a global order and how China-Hungary relationship in that context can be assessed?
Yeah, I think people are often surprised when they see Hungary present at events on globalization because there's such a misperception in the international media that Hungary is a country that's somehow closed off or backward-looking. Far from it. We are a very conservative country. We're a traditional country that values family values, but we actually consider that to be the basis for our international exchange. People became alienated in the totally neoliberal world. In many of those decades, there was the idea that everyone would share just one global international culture that would be driven by American consumer brands. But actually we are entering into a very different world, and in the multipolar world, the importance of your national identity and strength is an important basis for making those connections. So Hungary, because of its geographical location, has very good trade ties with the West and also with the East. And we think that that's important not only for us, but for the rest of Europe as well.
But there's also a growing perception that European countries are somehow lacking in the independence in their foreign policy lately, particularly when it comes to China and Russia, for instance, and are seen as vassal states of the United States, if I can. Could you provide whether there is any justification to such an assessment?
Unfortunately, I think that there have been trends in that direction, particularly since the beginning of the Ukrainian war, or the war in Ukraine. And the situation has been that Europe has pursued policies which are not actually beneficial to it. In the Hungarian viewpoint, the sanctions on Russia have basically backfired. And we said at the beginning that they would, and I think even many American commentators now realize that that's the case. But there was enormous pressure put on Europe from the outside. Of course, it came from within Europe as well. It wasn't purely external. But energy is the primary input into an economy, and when energy prices go up through decoupling or through sanctions, then everyone is hurt. So there's been a steady deindustrialization in Germany. Consumers have been facing higher energy prices, and we think it's straightforward to say that that's bad, and that that's bad for European strength and European competitiveness. Unfortunately, what's happening is that a lot of European leaders are just not talking about this. They just want to pretend that it doesn't exist. But you can't wish reality away. It's going to come back, and it's already here.
Another example that comes to mind from where we are in Beijing, basically, that Italy recently pulled out from China's Belt and Road Initiative. So how do you think Europe should balance its relations with major powers like China and the U.S. while maintaining its own strategic interests and independence?
Well, I think that a better sense of European strategic autonomy would enable it to have those different relationships. The trade relationship between China and Europe isn't going away, and it can't go away. And so whenever it's damaged, for example, through withdrawals from the Belt and Road Initiative or the kind of collapse of the 16+1 platform in Central and Eastern Europe, that has economic consequences that are not good. And so we have to reframe the debate and realize that European strategic interests include being able to pursue more of its own foreign policy. That depends upon a lot of factors and a real change in mentality and spending and economic and military development. But the relationship with China is one that already exists. It's already existed, and it can't go away. So the states who are benefiting from it, we hope, will be more vocal about that. So sometimes Hungary is the one that speaks up most clearly, but I know that behind the scenes other people are beginning to share the same opinion, and so we have to hope that cooler heads prevail.
In the emerging world order that we see and in global governance model, how do you view President Xi Jinping's three global initiatives, the Global Development Initiative, the Global Security Initiative, and the Global Civilization Initiative?
Well, I think that these are important initiatives that are modeled on a base of economic development. And I think that any initiatives that are oriented toward economic development and peaceful exchange are good ones. Hungary views China not as a threat but as an opportunity. We have to push back against this idea that there's a zero-sum mentality in the world, that the benefit of one always comes at the expense of the other. having grown up in the United States, I know why that mentality exists, because for a while the U.S. was the only player, and so it feels that any development elsewhere is a threat to it. But it seems that China has a different view of this, that there can be shared development, and obviously there are a lot of challenges that's going to encounter in different parts of the world. Unfortunately, we've seen that in Europe with some of the departures from the Belt and Road Initiative. But frankly, we have to eventually realize that people can pull out of economic arrangements, but they do so only at their own cost. That costs go up, there's an opportunity cost, and industrial development goes down. So I think we have to find whatever the initiatives are from the East, from the West, that are pointing in this more cooperative direction on a strong national basis, and pursue those.